taking it back. I'm taking it back. I'm taking it back. I'm taking it back.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
Can I please have your attention?
Now showtime. Are you ready? Are you ready for start time?
Let's find out. Ready? Let's go.
What's up, Facebook Live? I am at it again. That's right. It's another live episode of DJ R.O.B. Presents Taking It Back. Sorry we skipped last week. It was the anniversary weekend with the wife, so we did some dinners and some wining and dining, but we're back with another special guest. So once again, I always say, this next guy, we go back like an 8-track in a Cadillac with the seats back. But technically we do. I've only known him for about 6 or 7 years. We were trying to do the math. It's been 6 or 7 years since when I met him. But technically, we go back like an 8-track in a Cadillac with the seats back because I owned his 8-track, the Switch 8-track from 1978. I owned it, so technically we go back like an 8-track in a Cadillac. So without further ado, the talented, amazing, nicest guy you ever meet, hardest, and I always tease him, hardest working man in showbiz and Vegas entertainment, nightlife, and his previous career as a member of the gold and platinum group Switch. We're going to take it way back, and we're going to talk about the present and the future. But without further ado, my man, the legend, the talented, give it up for Eddie Fluellen.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
There he is.
Hey Rob, how you doing?
So check it out. Thank you first and foremost for showing up. You're so busy. I tease you all the time.
Yes,
Hardest
you do.
working man
Yes,
in
you
show
do.
business.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you.
This guy is juggling 20 bands, projects, school, teaching. We're going to get into that. But usually what I do is I start with, because this is like a Vegas entertainment type of
Yes.
show, I like to take it back and say, how and why did you end up in Las Vegas? Let's start there, and we'll move up from there. So,
Well, first of all, let's start before that. Happy anniversary.
oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Let's see. Back in 92, 93, I believe, we're looking for a place to live, and we're looking for a house, as a matter of fact, in Los Angeles. And, for me and my family, and as we were looking, we, of course, the housing prices in L.A. were crazy back then, just like they are now. And for what we were looking for, for the money that we had, we could probably get a garage back then. So we were starting to look elsewhere. And a friend of mine has suggested Las Vegas. So I remember thinking at the time when he suggested that, Las Vegas, you mean the adult entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, where I'm going to raise my kids. Yeah. And he's like, well, no, they're starting to build out there, and they're going to make it a family place now, which is another concept to try to get into. Las Vegas now is going to be a family place. So long story short, we did come here and, liked it, and here we are.
What year was that again?
That was 93, I believe. I think it was 93. And I remember a few years after that saying that, I don't know if I want to stay here. And here I am, almost 30 years later. So.
And it's crazy that you've lived here that long, and we only met, like we were trying to do the math, 2013, 2014.
I think it was longer than that.
Yeah, we might have met in some situation, but officially, I think, with our mutual friends like Randall Bostic and your bandmates that we know, and then and I was doing the old school parties at the Silverton, and you were on the keyboard with some band. It wasn't your 40 years, and it wasn't Switch, obviously, but you were doing some band.
There were a few bands that I was playing with over at the Silverton, and which I can remember who they were.
And I was booking bands, and I said to probably Randall or whoever our mutual friends were at the time, I said, that dude right there is dope on the keyboard.
Wow.
And he says, you know who that is? That's Eddie Fluellen from Switch. And I went, Switch? Now, that was my group. And for all you old R&B heads out there, man, I don't know how many babies were made.
We get that one all the time.
Or I Call Your Name.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
I Want to Be Closer.
Those were on the Slow Jam mixtape. Sorry. So I'm surprised we didn't bump heads or bump shoulders
too.
or.
I am too. Looking back over the years and all that, and every time we talk about it, it seems it's. I know it's been longer than 5 6 years. We've known each other longer than that.
But when we did meet, it's like when you kind of know somebody, but you don't know somebody.
Exactly. Yeah.
Our mutual respect, our mutual interest, producing, recording.
Yes.
Musicians. Me also a DJ, but it seems like we hit it off.
Yes.
Sometimes people have that same talent energy. They're
right. Kind of standoffish, right?
You were the nicest guy, and everybody said you were the nicest guy.
Thank you. Likewise.
I'm glad I
Thank
got
you
to
very
meet
much.
you, and I'm glad you're here today.
Thank you.
So we're to discuss his history, going way back.
Going way
now,
back.
Before Switch, this guy, elementary school, learns classical music,
classical piano,
not R&B and all that. So let's talk about that.
At the ripe old age of 8 years old.
Did parents tell you you were interested in how did it happen?
Well, actually, my stepfather at the time, I remember one Saturday, he put me in the car and said, we're going somewhere. He didn't even tell me where we were going. Next thing I know, we were at like my first piano lesson. And this was at a time when, this was at a time when, you do what your parents say, so got in the car, no questions asked, went and had my first piano lesson and actually liked it. And this is in Akron, Ohio, and it was the dead of winter. We had a upright piano that was sitting out in the garage, and that's where I practiced for about a month, 2 months. And of course, anybody from back east knows that in about February, that's when we're starting to come out of the cold, but it's still cold. So the garage was what it was, no heating in the garage, and that's how I practiced for about 2 or 3 months.
And that was piano first?
Practice piano, yep.
Then all of a sudden, you got interested in trombone?
That was years later. That was maybe about 5 years later. And this was at a time when there were, the horn bands were like the big thing. And anybody that knows me knows that I'm a big fan of like horn bands at the time. Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Kool and the Gang, Ohio Players, Chicago, all of them. And I was learning how to play piano, and I wanted to be in the band because back at the time we had the band and the orchestra is where you could play piano. But I wanted to be over there in the band too. So when I asked about the band, the orchestra director at the time said, well, we need people to play tuba. I'm like, tuba? Really? You mean the big, that big thing? And he's like, yeah, if you want to get in the band, we need tuba players. So I got up there and actually had fun. And I got in the marching band, and this is when we were doing like all the dance steps, and I was back there with my tuba and, just all over the place with my, big white tuba. It was fun. And, eventually I wanted to, again, I was getting in really, really into the horn bands. You had the trumpet players. Everybody loved playing trumpet. You had the sax players, but not a lot of trombone players. And I remember I was going through, the band trying to figure out now which other instrument, because I was looking for a second instrument as a matter of fact at the time. So at that time, I literally took like every instrument, like every weekend I'd take an instrument home and work on it. And I didn't find anything that, I jived with that got along with me. So I remember we were at a band rehearsal, and my band director, the great James Lucas, he was up on his podium, and the trombone, we were in our band rehearsal, and the trombone section was having a particularly hard time with this one part. So he went and he played horn. He played his French horn was his main, but he played like the whole, as any teacher would know, you have to know a lot about, a little bit about each one of the instruments. So he went back and he pulled out a trombone, and I always tell the story. It was literally like God shined a light on him as he was playing this trombone. And I'm like, that's it. And I asked him that day if I can take a trombone home. And ironically, my mother was pregnant at the time with my younger sister, Joy. And I think it was like the second weekend I took that trombone and I worked over I stayed at my grandmother's house while my mother was in the hospital during delivery. And I took that trombone home, and that entire weekend, that's all I did was just play that trombone. Just played it and played it and played it. To where when I had gone back, when I had done auditions or whatever, I worked my way from the third chair in the trombone section to the first chair in a matter of months. I just loved it. And because I was with other horn players or whatever in the orchestra, trumpet player, he hit me to a band called Chicago. He goes, if you want to really listen to some good horns. So as a result of that, I listened to them, listened to the great Wayne Henderson with the Jazz Crusaders.
Tower Power,
all of them. And I was like really like listening to the horns. I loved the horns and all that. And as a result, I learned how to write horn charts because they just loved them. You know,
I
so
understood
I just loved playing with them.
how you could hit notes on a trumpet, and every instrument had knobs. Oh, you hit this button.
You said knobs.
I learned a little guitar, learned a little bass. Of course, I learned drums, learned a little keyboard. A few instruments I got an understanding of. To me, that's got to be the hardest horn instrument because you don't have a set button. You have to reach that note, and it's muscle memory, I guess.
Yes.
To land it there.
Yep, in position.
I know a lot of people, they cheat and they could slur into that note, and if they miss it, they move it so quick, and then you get on that note. But man, the trombone.
And
that's
there was
crazy.
just, and that thing, there was just something interesting about like that part of it. Like, you know, you have to, you know, wherever the position is on that slide, you have to be sure to hit like that position to stay in tune. So that intrigued me. I remember like really like, okay, it's not about just like, and not taking anything away from any other instrument, but there was just something about like that slide that intrigued me, like making sure that you hit that note, making sure that you're in the right position. I mean, I have like a lot of trombone friends here that I just love watching them play. You know, it's crazy. I love it.
Now, did you do the marching band too, where you had to play the trombone?
Oh yeah,
and swing it and accidentally hit somebody? That's another thing. It was so long.
That's another story. We won't talk about that.
Yeah. You hit somebody in the head, knocked their teeth out or something.
Actually, no. I've lost the slide a few times when we're playing, and the slide just keeps right on going. But you know, that's another story. But yeah, trombone. That was like so many years later, but it all started with the piano. And
so this is elementary. In high school, you're still taking those instruments. You're in the band. Now, did you start your own band like most teenagers did? You're in high school, and did you start some bands, or you waited till after high school till you started doing the other bands?
Actually, and again, that was like, you know, getting into like the horn bands at the time or whatever. I wanted to be in a band, and anybody from Akron knows. I guess that's all over that there were like the local bands that performed. And I wanted to be in a band. And, of course, there were like a lot of horn bands at the time. So I'm going to take my trombone and I'm going to join a band. It just so happened that there was a band that was looking for a trombone player. Right?
What year was this?
Oh, man, what was that? 70? I want to say 72, 1972, wow. 70. Yeah, I think it was 72. And
in Akron, Ohio.
Akron, Ohio. The great Akron, Ohio.
Just so people know, Ohio, the state of Ohio, Akron, and other parts of it's got to be the capital of funk.
Thank you.
We'll talk about that later.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're in the best city to do what you were doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So you find this band and they need a trombone player.
I think at the best time too. And again, I got word
that the name of that band?
The name of the band was Raw Soul. The Raw Soul
I wish
Review.
we had a picture of that. Oh, wait a minute. We do.
Look at this. Oh my gosh.
Look at this man's natural.
Look at that. Well, that was a perm.
Oh, same thing.
I spent much money for that. So money that I couldn't afford.
Remember all those guys?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yes, I do. And you'll probably recognize that guy that's kneeling down right there in the front, but we'll talk about him later.
We can call that phone number and see if we can book him.
Yep.
So how long were you with those guys?
3 years, 3 or 4 years, I believe.
You got your feet wet with with other musicians, doing shows.
Interesting story about that band. When I had gone to audition, they were rehearsing at a place that wasn't too far from where I live. So I just walked over there with my trombone and knocked on the door. They rehearsed in the basement. And they let me in, went down, and waited on the stairs to the basement, whatever, and the band wasn't there, right? So I'm just sitting there playing. Meanwhile, there's the guys out in the backyard playing basketball or whatever. So I'm waiting, no band. They're out there playing basketball. Eventually, the guys come in, and that happens to be the band that's outside playing basketball. They come in, they come downstairs, and they walk right by me, and they're all talking about, like, what's up with the trombone player? Why is he late? He's not here yet, right? And I'm like, I'm the trombone player. And they said that one of the guys that came down, they saw me, but they thought that I was one of the kids that was playing out with the other guys, with another group. They said I looked so young, they thought I was one of the other kids. So they just ignored me. They didn't know that I was the guy.
Until you start blowing the horn.
Until I started playing.
And what were you guys playing? Cover stuff or your own stuff?
Yeah, it was all cover.
Remember some of the songs you were covering?
Man, I want to say
72, 73.
Of course, it was Ohio players.
Ohio players,
yes. Ohio players, Cool in the Gang. I think Average White Band. Yeah, we did sneak Average White Band in there. But yeah, it was because it's Ohio, so we got to start with the homeboys first, So.
Now you were over 21 at this point, or no?
No, I was 16.
Were you allowed to do the clubs, or what were you guys doing for shows?
Well, we were allowed to do the club.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Most bands get in
back
there.
then it was. We won't talk about it, but it's okay.
So yeah, you got your feet wet doing the bands, and you probably joined some other bands after that.
No.
Uh-oh.
Brasshold, that was it as far as like the local bands. Philip and I and a couple of the other guys, we decided it's time to move on. Let's do some other things or whatever. And again, I'm still doing piano. I'm still playing piano. Another story as far as before we get off there, when I got with the band with Raw Soul, they didn't know that I knew how to play piano. And that was a plan of mine because I was a classical pianist and I wanted that to be classical, but my rock was going to be over here. So the two will never mix, because I was doing recitals.
So they
in
never
high school.
knew?
Well, they found out, actually by accident. We had played like maybe a year and a half or whatever, and I never touched the piano. Maybe not quite that long, but never touched the keyboard. I'd always go there with my trombone or whatever. And again, the keyboard, that's his job, so I'm not doing that. Well, anyway, we were working on a song. It was by R.O.B.s. I can't remember the name of the song. I want to say Sweet Thing. I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of the song. But he was having a hard time with like this one voicing and the chord. And the guys were getting frustrated. Everybody was getting frustrated. That's not the chord. And he insisted that the chord was right. And I'm like, no. And everybody's looking at me. I'm like, it's supposed to be this chord. And I just walked right over there and play. Before I knew it, I'm like there, playing piano. Everybody's like,
And like,
wait a minute, you can play? You should be. And of course, they wouldn't say that in front of him. But one guy's whispered to me, you should have been the keyboard player. I'm like, no, I should be the trombone player. That's what
awesome.
I came for. So
we get to the nitty gritty. That's pretty. 3 years in a band is good because people start fighting and then not getting along, and then you get substitutes and you got to change members. And for a little band coming straight out of high school, whatever, 3 years is a long run.
Yeah, and our band got along. We thoroughly enjoyed playing, performing with each other.
So then something happens, and some group called Switch becomes something.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about how that happened. I know there's a long story. Maybe we need to hear the long story. I know Philip was instrumental in that, right?
Yeah, and again, Russell had broken up. We'd all gone our separate ways or whatever, and we'd all kind of like come to know each other and what each other could do. And I know Philip was like a dynamic singer, as everybody knows. He could sing his behind off, and I always knew that Philip was going to be one of those guys he's going to be up there. And at the time, we were, L.A. was like the place to go. Los Angeles was the place to go. That was our dream, to go to Los Angeles. And I remember me and my partner at the time, Reggie Manley, who was a sax player who was supposed to be in the band, we had said, we're going to go to L.A. and we're going to be like the horn players like in L.A. So anyway, Philip calls me and says that, he's got a friend over there named Gregory Williams who is in the band called White Heat. And Gregory had seen us perform in town. Every once in a while he'd come to town and watch us perform.
Tell people what White Heat was and who was in charge of that.
White Heat. The name of White, Barry White. I think they were his band for a minute there. But Barry White produced them, and the rest, as they say, is history as far as White Heat.
I was looking for that album because I remember the White Heat album because I loved Barry White stuff, the strings and it's funky and the drums and the production. But I remember the White Heat being some cool stuff, and I knew I had that album. I got to find it because it's pissing me off.
Funky group.
That stuff was dope.
Had a great horn section, great vocalist, of which Bobby DeBarge was one of those vocalists. I believe in Tommy DeBarge. I think he played bass with him for a little while, and then. And Gregory, if I got that wrong, I apologize. But that was so many years ago. I'm trying to remember everything.
But that was part of that group. And then go ahead and finish that story.
Right. Gregory at the time had come by and seen us, and I think they had kind of White Heat had disbanded. They had decided to do some other things as well. So Gregory had this idea that he wanted to put the band together. And of course, one of the first people he comes to see is Philip. Because he's blown away by Philip, and Philip recommends me. And Gregory already had Tommy DeBarge with him. So we kind of had the band together, and Greg comes more. He comes over to my place at the time, and Philip called me and told me that he was going to be bringing Greg over. So in my little apartment, I like went around and just grabbed all my like sheet music, all my charts and all that stuff, and strategically placed them like all over the place so he could see that, hey, you know, I'm going to be in this band because look, you know, this is, you know. So ironically, I didn't have to do any of that because Greg already knew. He's like, I want him, you know. And fortunately for me, you know, I'm in a band later called Switch.
And so you guys were in Los Angeles, and you get a meeting, or you do any demos, or?
We did a demo in Akron and Mansfield, Ohio. And one of the things that Greg had said to me upon that first meeting is that, you know, I'm going to take this demo that we're going to work on, and within 2 weeks after I get to California, I'm going to have a deal. Mm-hmm. And I remember like looking at Greg saying, okay, that's fine, but if you don't have a deal, I'm going to LA anyway. Right. And I would tease Greg about that. I mean, to this day, man, if I had known what I knew, if I knew what I know about the music business now, if you come to my house and tell me that you're going to have a deal in 2 weeks, I would have thrown you out. Mm-hmm. You know, because it just doesn't happen that way. But for Switch, it happened that way. So, the fellas.
Your little official 8x10 promo.
Greg had called us and said that, hey, you know, I think we have a deal. I'm like, get out of here. He goes, I just met Jermaine Jackson, and he puts Jermaine on the phone. He happens to be with Jermaine, and we're like, get out of here. It's not Jermaine Jackson, whatever. You know. Mm-hmm. So anyway, within I think a month, not too long after that, we're headed to California, and we're working on our first album.
And you remember going to the studio and writing the songs and.
I remember our showcase with Mr. Gordy, who Mr. Gordy like loved like the fact that we were able to switch instruments because that was one of the things that everybody played more than one instrument.
That's something that's very interesting. People need to know. Switch, the name came about because multi-talented, multi-instrument members of the band. Right. Oh, trombone, back to the keyboard. Oh, singer, go back to the percussion. And that was dope.
Right.
And everybody wondered, what does switch mean?
When we did our showcase, the great Suzanne DePass, she had seen our showcase, and she's with Mr. Gordy, you know, and they're all watching us and whatever. So we have a meeting with Mr. Pass, and she says, one of the comments she makes in our searching for a name, she's like, I've never seen so much switching on one stage in my life. And we were all like, switch.
Just hit the light bulb.
There it is.
It switched the light bulb on, which is dope. It's just hard. You know, bands take months and years. We got to come up with a name. Natural. And
I'm glad you mentioned that when you talk about switching the light bulb on. There's a rare album cover. I don't know if you've seen it. The blue album cover. I've seen that
before the album cover that everybody knows.
The official one, right, right. That one came out, and I don't know if you remember that picture, but it was supposed to like focus on what people liked at the time. And I had a picture of my little dog.
Yeah, it was like a dark blue, and it just had the letters at the top of the record.
Yep. If you look at that photo, you'll see Bobby like pulling a rope.
That's dope.
It was supposed to be a neon sign that says switch. Right.
And he's talking about Bobby DeBarge, but we're going to get into that.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So why was there a different artwork? Was that a pre-release, or was that on a different label? Or why was it?
Mr. Gordy stepped in and said, hey, this is what I want to happen with these guys. I want everybody in the band, I want people to know these guys by name, by their first name.
That's smart.
I want these guys to be, you know, the next Jackson 5. He wanted to be like that.
Image was everything.
It was everything.
The record label.
It was everything.
The Motown, that was their whole design. You know, you groom the talent, you get them ready for the stage, and then you dress them, and they got to look the part, and they got to act the part.
And needless to say, we were already excited. Hey, we got an album out. You know, the album cover is good. We were excited or whatever. Next thing we knew, there's got to be a new album cover shoot, and we were whisked away to go get clothes and all. I mean, we just got like.
If you wanted to go triple platinum, they should have just put you. They should have put that picture on the cover. Look at this dude.
Speaking of that perm earlier, I paid a lot of money for that perm.
That's awesome.
But as a matter of fact, those clothes that was when they
That's part of the photo shoot for the real album cover that everybody sees
They
today.
Took us out to go get clothes and everything. I mean, they spared no expenses as far as that.
I think I got
that was a great day. We had fun.
Back of that somewhere.
What's he going to pull up?
Press.
Got me shaking over here.
Switch back. Oh, yeah. Which is smart because you guys were on the front and on the back. They featured everybody's name and their little profile. So
And it's too, I wish we had that other album cover, but it's online. The First Switch album cover.
yeah, I wanted
and
when I seen that doing my research.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about some things here.
But the comparison between the two is like just night and day. Just night and day. It was still the same song, same material. The album was done. We just need to do an album cover, and that was a comparison.
I wish I had that, but check it out.
Uh-oh. What are you gonna do?
My record.
Look at this guy. Look at this. Look at this. There
First
they are.
album, Switch.
Number one.
Awesome. My personal records. And I know you got them too.
Oh yeah.
In order, Switch
Yep.
2. We're going to talk about all this.
Yep. Look at that.
This one's still sealed, believe
Look
it or
at
not.
still sealed.
I'm going to tell you something about this.
Uh-oh.
This is the best technically recorded one. The sound quality on this record, this one's unopened, but I got one that's open. I loved the sound quality on this record. I don't know if you noticed.
Take it from the man who knows. You would know.
You need to listen to this.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Man, we got this.
And then we went back
something he did on this album.
Uh-oh.
I mean, came out of left field. We're going to talk about it later.
Yeah.
Switch 5.
And then the Total Experience days. Switch it, baby.
Total Experience was the label Gap Band was on.
Yes.
In their later years.
Yes. Yep. Got to meet them. They were fun.
I even got a 12-inch.
Look at this.
Of I Call Your Name.
What?
Best beat in town on the other side. This is worth money.
Okay, that might come up missing later. Just so you know.
Oh, you don't have this?
No.
Man, I might give it to you.
Oh. Okay. You heard it.
Version,
you heard it here first.
It ain't just the album version on a 12-inch. It's actually way longer than the album version.
Okay, you guys heard him. You heard him promise. You heard him promise. He did promise.
We're going to do it like this. We're going to do it like this. Ladies and gentlemen, this record's worth about $6,000.
Oh, no.
No, it ain't worth $6,000. But hey, if you need it for your collection, if you don't have this, it's yours.
I'm gonna check. If I don't have it, I'm gonna give this back to you.
Just bring it back.
Okay, if I do have it, I should say I'm gonna bring this back to you.
Because I'll listen to the album version.
Look at this. Look at this.
That was like
in pristine condition.
The 7-minute. No, I don't think it's. It's like mint. Probably made 5 babies to that long version.
It's hot.
So anyway, we're talking about the albums, the album cover.
Best beat in town. That was, oh my God.
I love that.
Okay.
Everybody thought
it's been
Switch
so long since I've seen any of this.
The great balladeers, and most of your hits were the slow songs. That's funky. And you guys showed, so on your albums, you always had 1 or 2 dance hits. And I remember watching Soul Train when you guys did that. I'm showing my age. I'm not old as him. Anywho.
He watched it and we were on. There we were.
Let's go back to photo shoot the album. You record it. You finish it. What do you think's going to happen? Do you think it's going to blow up? Are you guys waiting to see? You know it's Motown. They're not going to sleep on it.
One of the things Jermaine Jackson used to always tell us in the studio, as we were working in the studio, and first of all, Jermaine would always refer to us as wild. You know, we were 6 wild guys. You guys are wild. You guys are wild.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, we're you know, early 20s, teenagers coming from Akron, Ohio, who've never been to Los Angeles or whatever. So here we come to the big city, and we were wild. We were wild. But anyway, Jermaine would tell us while we were in the studio, he'd say, you know, you guys will never know how big you are. Okay. And we never knew what he meant by that. You know, you'll never know how big. Well, we're just, you know, 6 guys from back east, and we got an album out. And, you know, hey, if it hits, hits. If it doesn't, hey, we got an album out. But meanwhile, there's this machine that's working, the Motown machine that's working behind us, right? We had no idea until we go out on our first promotional tour. And I think it was Detroit. We had gone to Detroit, and we're all in our limousine, and we're driving along to this place, and Jermaine and Hazel, you guys are going to go to an autograph session. So we're like, okay, we're going to go to an autograph session. So we're driving along, and somehow it's in the winter again, right? So as we're driving, far off in the distance, you can see like there's some kind of like thing going out there. There's a bustle. There's like a bunch of people outside. And again, this is wintertime, right? There's like a bunch of people that are standing outside, and we don't know. And we're all like, and this is I think it's at a mall, and we're all, wow, they must be having some big sale.
Autograph signing session right there.
Yep.
Might be the one you're talking about.
Actually, that's a different place.
Okay.
That is a different one.
But he said,
but
you guys didn't know you were going to go do
wondering.
this?
We didn't know. We knew we were going to go we knew we were going to an autograph session. But we go back to what Jermaine said, you'll never know how big you are, right? So we're going to this place, and as we're getting closer, this crowd is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So we drive in, and Jermaine, and I think Hazel said, this is where the autograph session is. And we're like, all these people are here for us? And they're like, yeah. We get out of the car, and it was like blood-curdling screams. I mean, just loud. And, you know, we go in, and of course, they're like grabbing us. And we've never been treated like this before, right? So they're grabbing us, and they're whisking us into this place, and they're like protecting us as we're going in. And we're looking at each other like, wow. And let alone that inside this place, the place was packed. So these people outside were waiting to get in, right? So the place was packed. And
so was two questions. Mm-hmm. At this point, the album was released?
Yes.
The first single was released?
Album was, right,
what was the first single?
The first single was There'll Never Be.
Okay, so There'll Never Be. It's on the radio, autograph session. You trip out all these people for you because they know the song.
Yes.
And you guys, you're in a bubble kind of when you're an artist. How many times it's on the radio? Who's buying the records? And then you go and you see in person these people.
And remember, meanwhile, we're in the studio. We started working like on the second album. We're in the studio or whatever, you know. So we don't know that all this is going. I mean, we know by the charts, and you know, we hear it on the radio.
The first time you heard it on the radio, the first single.
Oh my gosh, that
what station? Where were you at?
I was in L.A. I want to say it was KJLH in L.A.
KJLH or KD?
Yeah, you remember. Yep. And my phone is ringing off the hook from people from back home who've heard it even before that. We heard your record. I'm like, it's not playing here. And not too long after that, it's playing like crazy. So, and again, we haven't been on tour or whatever, so we don't know. I mean, we know from people telling us that you know, it's being played. But again, we don't know how big it is until we do that promotional tour and all these people show up for the autograph session. And all the subsequent autograph sessions since after that were just like that. I think that was one in L.A., the one that you just showed. I think that was in L.A., and it was the same thing. Same thing.
So do you tour off the first album, or you say you jump back in the studio and start working on the second album?
We went back in the studio. We didn't tour until our fourth album, until This Is My Dream.
What was the reason?
And we always get that reaction.
Yeah.
Right.
Was that the brainstorm of Motown? Or
that was the brainstorm. And, you know, just
because you guys were an image group, good-looking guys, sing.
And for a long time, people thought that that's what we were. They don't know how to play. You know, they're just a bunch of like models and all that. They can't play until we got on that tour. And maybe holding back was a good thing because I mean the crowds were just crazy. I don't know. You know,
but you did the Soul Trains and stuff like that.
Yeah, we did like touring, the TV shows. Right. We did those, but not like actually going out there and playing. So when we finally went out there and played, and people saw us and said, "Hey, these guys can play. You know, they're not just models. They're not just whatever. They can actually play."
So you're recording second album. How many singles did they do off the first album?
The first album was "There'll Never Be," "I Want to Be Closer," and that was a great session as well. Jermaine had the track. I think that was like one of the first tracks that we heard when we first got with Motown. Jermaine had this track, and it's just beautiful chords. But if you listen to it, it sounds like Me and Mrs. Jones. You know, and we're all like, we don't want to do Me and Mrs. Jones. Like, you know, like we have that call.
Right.
So we're in there, and then Jermaine, on the track, there's that piano playing the bling, 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 bling. But that's all there was. There were no harmonies on it.
I love that harmony part.
Yep.
And
so I'm going to toot my own little horn here. So anyway, so Jermaine, when it comes time to work on that song, Jermaine says, you know, I hear really big, lush harmonies. You know, I'm a big Carpenters fan, too. I want harmonies like that. And so was I. Loved harmonies, right? So Philip was there, and Philip was like, there's your guy. And I was sitting on the couch at the time. There's your guy. You want to talk to him? And Jermaine's like, Eddie, can you do those harmonies? I'm like, sure.
You're a keyboard player. Yeah. Harmony is just chords. And do them with your vocals.
Yep. And then when you get in 3-part, that's one thing. But when you get into 4 and 5, I mean, you got to find like those little notes that are inside there. So it was 4-part harmony, and when sat in the piano. And a little known fact also is that, you know, on that top vocal, people assume that's Bobby singing that top vocal. That's actually Tommy DeBarge is singing that top vocal. Tommy had a beautiful, beautiful, rich voice, you know.
And that was part of the battle is you know what parts should be sung, doing the keyboard,
And
writing the
stay
arrangement.
on
But
your
whose
note.
texture, whose voice sounds at that register? No, you got to sing that part. I know you could sing the bass one, but your texture on this one's not going to get in the way of this one. And it's not going to get in the way of this one.
And Tommy's just, I mean, he's a good false and a good natural voice. So, Tommy, this is your part. Jermaine sang a part. Gregory sang a part. And Philip sang a part. And it was that bottom part. Da, da, da. That was like the weird one. But everybody got it. And
they sound weird when you hear them by themselves.
When you hear, exactly, you know.
It's like, are you sure that's right? And then you lift up
and
the
I
other
got that a
tracks.
lot.
Woo.
I got that a lot during that session. Are you sure about that?
You sure you
I'm
want me to sing that? I
this
sound
is
like
the way. Yep.
a gorilla.
Yeah, and when you put that piano part, when you put all the parts together, this is the way it's supposed to sound if everybody hears their notes. And don't look at it as a part. Just look at it as this is the melody. This is your melody. You're singing that melody. And it worked out, and the rest, as they say, as I always say, is history.
So you're in Los Angeles. You're in recording mode. It's Motown. It's Gordy. I'm sure you're seeing people popping in the studio doing their thing and meeting celebrities. And I know you're a member of a hot band, but did you have like somebody you just wanted to meet, or somebody like, oh man, blah 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 just walked in, or oh my God, I just walked into the studio? You know any stories, or can you tell anybody who you met that you were awestruck?
Needless to say, you know, it starts with Jermaine Jackson, and so as a result, you know, the rest of the brothers would come in every once in a while. Michael, Tito, all the brothers, you know, they would all come in, you know, every once in a while, check on Jermaine. Oh, look at this is the new the project that he's working on, and of course we got to hang out. You know, they were all really cool.
In late 70s, they were hot.
Oh yeah,
they were still hot.
Pretty much the whole Motown roster. I mean, Lionel Richie, the Commodores, you know, Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder. We got a chance to meet all of them. They were all really cool, really cool. Rick James, you know, who came later, you know, really, really cool. We did a promotional tour with Rick James, and that was a crazy one. But
I'm sure that was
wild.
wild.
Loved it.
So
and there are pictures. There's
we are
pictures there.
full on Switch at this point. Second album comes out, and I Call Your Name is on that one, right?
I Call Your Name.
Ooh.
Yeah. And at the time, Mr. Gordy would have us at each album, before the album was released, Mr. Gordy would invite us to his house and ask us our opinion as what we thought our single should be. And of course, he always had, you know, the song that he would pick would be the single. And so, needless to say, I mean, on the first album, you know, he said They'll Never Be. He thought They'll Never Be would be the smash, and it was. And the same with the second album, I Call Your Name. And I think Best Beat in Town was actually like the first release off that second album, and then I Call Your Name.
Oh yeah,
I think so. I think so.
Look at the discography one day.
Yeah.
So you
and he can do that. He can do that.
Well, we showed you
he
some of
goes
those albums.
all in and finds like all that stuff. That's him.
So in the way a third album comes, fourth album comes, fifth album comes, then you switch labels. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What happened there?
If you look at that second album, well, actually the first two albums, you know, again, we have the Motown machine behind us. And when it came time for the third album, we had that meeting with Mr. Gordy, and it came time for us to pick what he thought would be the single. And Mr. Gordy picked Power to Dance. And he had said, you know, Power to Dance could be the next smash. All you have to do, and he's talking to Bobby DeBarge at the time, if you just change the lyrics. You know. And Bobby was like, he didn't want to change the lyrics. And everything changed after that. Not too long after that.
And we mentioned Bobby a few times. You can't mention the Switch without Bobby DeBarge. There was a lot of confusion back in the days because DeBarge was a group, Switch was a group. Switch came out first.
Right.
You had two DeBarge family members, Tommy and Bobby, in Switch. People were saying, wait a minute, is this Switch? Is this DeBarge? Are they sharing members? No, DeBarge had their...
Right.
You know. So, but Bobby, talk about Bobby, talent.
Phenomenal talent. I remember when I first met Bobby, I was blown away by his vocal. he just opened his mouth and it's there. It wasn't anything that it didn't look like he had to work at it at all. Interesting thing about Bobby, I mean, not only could he play and could he sing, and quite the writer, but I'll never forget, he would always, when I first met him, he would always refer to his brother L. He's like, if you think I'm something, wait till you meet my brother L. And those words rang true like so many years later. But I remember specifically, he would always say that, you think I'm good, wait till you meet my brother L. You know? And personally, I just think that, as far as, and Elle would say this, Elle would he'd put Bobby up there. Bobby is like the vocalist,
So years go by. We talked about you moved to Vegas. Switch had their 5, 6 albums, and it's time for you to move on. We're going to get to the present day. But guess what, people? Switch is still involved.
Yes.
Right now, residing in Las Vegas, like we talked about. Who would have thought, the old school tours are coming back, and years have went by, if not decades, where Switch was no longer doing anything. When did you guys get together and start doing some more shows?
Oh, man. I want to say 2000, like the early 2000s. We were kind of doing spot dates like here and there between like the last album and like 2003 where we started working consistently. But we were doing like spot dates like here and there, maybe like 2 or 3 a year or something.
And it was
like that.
tough because if they weren't consistent, it was more of a hassle to get these guys together, rehearse for that 1 or 2 shows. So they end up.
And you got to remember at the time, rap and hip hop was really starting to take off. It was really starting to take off during that time.
But people our age wanted to go back and see these groups.
They did. They did. Yep.
The kids are like, "Oh, that sample of that is from," and they go, "What? I thought that was original." They took that from here. So the whole sampling thing and the old R&B stuff, and there's a resurgence of going back and looking at the old R&B stuff. So you're still doing Switch. As a matter of fact, you got a date coming up in Los Angeles.
Yeah, December 19th at the Globe Theater with the great Elle DEBARGE.
Now that's going to be a show.
Yeah. Yep.
So he's got some of his members, and Switch is doing shows. Just you're going to go to eddiefluellen.com. I know Switch has got a page.
Yes.
And I bet you in 2022 you'll have a good dozen shows.
Here's hoping. We're working towards that end. We're definitely working towards that. So.
Now, we're past tense. I have to ask you, now that we're talking about current Switch stuff, you had to have a favorite song or a favorite album.
Oh,
I know it's tough, especially artists.
That's always a tough one. But I will say, let's see, Call on Me. I always thought that was going to be like a mega classic for Switch. And that was on Switch's last album with Motown on Switch 5. I always thought that was just going to be the one that was going to separate us from, and again, don't get me wrong here, to separate us from like the Bobby DeBarge influence things to like another style here. And if you listen to Call on Me, I mean, just everything about it is just, I mean, beautiful. I mean, the track, the vocals, the writing, the arrangement, the production is it. And
so being that was one of your favorite songs doesn't necessarily make it that favorite album just because of that one song. So
right. Are you asking for my favorite album?
Yes, got to go there.
Oh man,
got to be the first one. Come on.
Oh yeah.
Just because of the nostalgia of the first recording, getting out there, knocking it out.
Yep.
Now these gold and platinum albums, some of these.
Yes.
Gold singles even.
Yep.
So
the
first one out the box has always got to be the favorite.
Yeah. I mean, we had such a good time in the studio and all that, and with each one of the albums. I Call Your Name, Fallen off the second album, off the third album, My Friend in the Sky. I mean, we just had fun in the studio, and we were allowed to be creative. So we would like just go out of the box. You had mentioned earlier a song that I had written off the third album.
Oh man, do you want to talk about that? Because this trips me out. I'm gonna talk
A Brighter Tomorrow.
What he's doing now.
Oh, this is the overture.
Oh, is that which one you were talking about?
Yeah. Well, actually, the other one. But yeah, I had an overture on that one.
But I wanted to talk about this because this is. Wait.
Yep. We can
Where's
make
the camera? Where's the camera?
We can make it better.
R&B and soul and funk and pop at its best.
Thank you.
And all of a sudden, a track comes on. We Can Make It Better overture. Now you're listening to all this funk and R&B, and all of a sudden this is written by and arranged by Eddie. You only got so many writing credits on so many albums. There's so many members. Everybody's got to have their songs, write their song. But you do this one, and I swear I'm watching a Steven Spielberg movie or a Tom Hanks movie. Those strings, it's like a soundtrack. It's like a movie.
The great Claire Fisher. He's responsible for those strings. Beautiful. And that was a lot of that was, and a lot of people even now didn't know that I could play piano, and that's where it started. And if you look at all those album covers, they feature me on the trombone,
Right.
And the piano is kind of like back in the back. Like on the first album, it's trombone. The second album is a trombone sitting across my lap. And on that album, it's me with the trombone, all that. But my first instrument was piano. So a thing that was really cool as far as switch is that Mr. Gordy allowed me to like put my classical influences in there. And that started with actually throughout, but on Reaching for Tomorrow, A Brighter Tomorrow, I was able to do like the harmonies and get some really nice strings on there, really heavy piano. And it's the same for that one. We can make it better. Piano, vocal, harmonies, and strings and all that. And that I was allowed to put in my classical thing. I was allowed to like, this is what I do. This is my thing, piano. Trombone is my second instrument.
Well, people who hear Vegas, people who know you and work with you know that you're a musical genius.
Oh my gosh.
Technically,
Well, thank
recording,
you,
you got the comfort of finding your patch, getting the levels, writing stuff on the cuff in the studio. But even live, Eddie is a master. You know, you have bands and they have multiple keyboards and they go to a patch and it's totally out of whack volume wise. He goes in, if he's going to use 50 patches in the show, I know this is technical stuff you probably don't care about.
It is for me too, just so you know.
If he's going to use 50 patches throughout a 2-hour show, whatever, he goes in and he dials those patches in so they don't come in out of context. They fit where they were supposed to fit in that song as if it was the original recording or in balance with the rest of the instruments. And so that's when I first met you and I seen you, I said, oh, this guy, not only does he play good, but that's half the battle. The other, technically getting it right live.
Thank you.
know, so
Thank you. I appreciate
props
that.
on that.
I've always said as far as like that, you know, if you're going to play, there's a reason that those certain songs are hits. It's because of like certain
Balance,
parts and those things. So I always pay attention to like making sure the parts are right. And
And you got the patch that sounds like the record.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And, yeah, thank you. Thanks.
So we're in the current stages of Ed. If I told you he's juggling 20 bands, schools, degrees, teaching, trombone and piano lessons, man. And we talked about Rick James for a minute. They just came back from Buffalo. You guys did a show. So he is currently and presently working with Rick James' Stone City Band, the Bad Boys of Funk.
The Bad Boys.
How did that end up? I'm sure some of them knew you from the Motown and Gordy days, and you end up the resurgence of getting them. They're doing shows, and they use you. How's that come about?
I was actually on a gig. For those in town, in Las Vegas, there's a vocalist here, Nikki Logan. I was working with Nikki at a gig, and as it turns out, in the audience was drummer Lannis Hughes.
Oh, Lannis, yeah.
Yes, funky drummer, the pocket of life.
Now, I knew Lannis and his brother, and they might have been the ones that introduced us because I knew them too. We were wondering if it was Randall or somebody else, and I was thinking who else it could be. It could have been Lannis and them. But
Possible. And he had approached me as far as joining the band. They were starting to put the band together, and I believe it was himself, his brother, Randall, and the great Tom McDermott on guitar.
Yes.
And he'd approached me as far as like being the keyboard player with the band. And I'm like, sure. And of course, they would tell me stories as far as Motown or whatever, how we pass each other in the days of Motown in the Motown offices or whatever. So, I mean, to me, that was a no-brainer. I'd love, I got with them and worked my way up to music director of the band. So
there you go. And doing shows.
Yes, great bunch of guys, too. Great bunch of guys. And the stories they could tell. Ooh,
I booked them a couple times at the Silverton and 40 Years and Counting, which we're going to talk about. So currently, you're doing Stone City Band, just got back from a show in Buffalo. The same weekend that Showtime put that documentary out, Bitchin' or whatever it's called. With Rick. You guys need to watch that. You see a little glimpse of Eddie and Randall and Lannis and all the guys doing the show, and they can't talk about old Rick James and his evolution and everything he's done, and not talk about the Stone City Band that's still out there doing it.
Incredible thing about the Stone City Band, little known fact, I mean, they were Rick James' backup band. They played behind Rick James, and of course they're known for that. But the Stone City Band has done so much. I mean, they played behind the Mary Jane Girls. They played behind Eddie Murphy. They played behind, the greats, Tina Marie. They play, and that's kind of one of the things that I thought was important as a music director, that people need to know that you guys did this, that you're not just Rick James' band. You know, you guys have done some things. As a matter of fact, I was over at, just visited with Lannis just a few days ago, and just gotten, if I got it right, Lannis, it's a Grammy Award for their contribution to Can't Touch This.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
so
talk about sampling.
yeah.
And the odd thing is, and I guess Stone City could testify to this, or Rick James could at the time, he probably made more money off the publishing of the MC Hammer song than his original release. Isn't that the case?
They'd be better able to answer
I
that.
hear a lot of that,
but I'm sure that's the case.
Nostalgic samples, that the way the publishing works now, and they get all the royalties, and MC Hammer sells.
And I mean, they're playing it in commercials now, so they're getting paid.
So, the hardest working man in showbiz, Eddie Fluellen. There's dozens and dozens of bands. One of your ones that you're really pushing is your 40 Years and Counting.
40 Years and Counting.
And why did you create this? And not to confuse it with the Switch stuff, because even though you got some of their members from Switch, this is a whole different project, correct?
40 Years and Counting came about as, like you said, as far as me working and all that. I wanted to do like my own thing, you know. Separate from Switch, separate from everybody else or whatever. So I'd approached Philip as far as like singing, you know, with his band. And of course, Philip and I have a history that goes way back to the very beginning. So when I approached Philip, I told him, you know, this is what I want to do. Would you be interested? And of course, Philip, you know, jumped right on. And he was the one that actually came up with the name, which I love the name, 40 Years and Counting. That's actually now probably 50 years and counting now. How long?
Because that's how long ago you guys came up with it.
How long we've known each other, you know, from the beginning. And counting. You know, we're still best of friends, brothers practically. And it said that this show is not going to be about Switch, although Switch is part of our history. This show is about our history together. And so anybody that sees our shows, they'll you know, there are certain songs we play. There's an original that we had written way back with Raw Soul that was not released. So we performed that song, and people love that song. How come you guys don't put that song out? You know, it was one of my first horn charts. The first time I wrote like a horn chart for a band, it was on that song. The name of the song is "Keep the People Grooving." Yeah,
that's
70s
awesome,
talk.
Because this is stuff you probably always wanted to do. Man, there was that song we didn't do. And,
Exactly.
And those formative years of Switch and listening to other artists, and we were talking about the Ambrosia song, and people thought that was Switch. They were calling you saying, that new song.
Oh, yeah. My phone rang off the hook when that song came out. You know, You're the Biggest Part of Me. When that song came out, people were like, man, I just heard your song. Man, that song is it's a great song. I'm like,
It had some of the same chord structures.
Same chord structures, harmonies, everything. That song was "I Call Your Name" to us all over again.
Ironically, you do that in this band.
And that's why we do it, because
and
Philip
other
and I,
things that are reminiscent of your careers back in the day.
Exactly.
We got to do this song, because remember when we were on tour with this group, and all the nostalgia and all the stuff you can bring to the stage.
And that's it, just those two words, remember when. And we both look at each other, man, you remember when this was the thing, and you remember when we did that. You remember when you wrote that horn chart for that one song. It's your first horn chart, your first professional horn chart. So again, we make this, it's a story of Philip and Eddie. Yep, and 40, and we're still friends. 40
years.
Got
to shout out one of our mutual friends, Larry Hall.
Larry!
I know you're doing a gig with him at Silverton.
Yes, speaking of Silverton.
Next month?
Yep. Larry Hall.
Larry Hall talked to me into booking y'all again. We love Larry.
Yeah, come and check that project out. Speaking of like one of the projects, great band. Yeah, so
I can't believe he got you for that. I can't get
We've been
him to play
friends
on my
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah. Oh, we need to fix that then. We need to fix that.
Well, we know about a little wild buck of my ass to do my band. I'm glad you came and supported us and watched us.
Absolutely.
I guess you were impressed with it, but
great band. Yes,
I wasn't begging, but what I was getting to was, if I would have known you, I would have had you. I know you were too busy, but I would love to have you in there.
Man, I saw you playing. I wish that's still on the table.
And our Blue band. Martini days when I was DJing.
Yes.
You on stage and I was playing all the old school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those were the good days.
Phenomenal. Oh yeah, phenomenal.
So you got the Larry Hall Band, you got the 40 Years and Counting, you got the Switch Reincarnation. That's probably going to go on tour. Not a reincarnation, but you're back together.
Yeah. Switch never broke up.
No.
We've always played here.
Durations of getting together get longer and longer.
Right.
The demand changes. It's part of growing up and getting older. I mean, when you guys do 50 Years and Counting.
Yeah.
And
I think
5 years from now, you do Switch, they better have some wheelchair access. We're getting old. So among all the many bands and many things, you also have something kind of what I'm doing, but you did it before me. The Playground. Talk about the Playground. And you guys, you can go to YouTube. It's called The Playground with Eddie Fluellen.
Yes.
And you're talking to entertainers. You're talking to your former bandmates. Anything that you deem interesting?
Thank you so much for mentioning that. The Playground, my producer, Teresa Goss, had approached me about, doing this podcast. And this was before COVID. And I'm like, well, sure. What do you want me to do? And she said she wanted me to be the host of the show. I'm like, the host? I'm a keyboard player. I sit behind the piano. I play music. That's what I do. You want me to actually sit in front of people and ask them questions? And she's like, there's nobody better suited for it because you know what questions to ask. And we come up with this plan that we're going to have the veterans. And I do have calls where people that are, calling me for the exposure, but I want veterans, people that can tell those people that are up and coming in the business, this is what I went through. This is what I did to get to where I'm going. And I've interviewed greats.
You've had a dozen shows already. That was a couple of years ago you started?
Has it been just before COVID? Just before COVID hit.
Well, it's going on 2 years now.
Is it? Man, it's been 2 years.
January, it'll be 2 years. I mean, we started hearing the inklings of COVID in January.
Right.
I went to NAMM 2 years ago.
That year.
And I had this, I don't think I ever got COVID, but people were calling it NAMthrax because NAMM was in January. In February, I had this harsh, coffee cold, lasted 2 days. It was harsh. I never had anything like that. And then later, February, March, we started hearing about COVID. And I'm wondering, hey, maybe I got the COVID because that was, NAMM was tens and hundreds of thousands of people. A lot of the Asian companies, all the music instrument companies, mixers, everything music at NAMM.
Right.
And some of my mutual friends that went said the same thing happened to them like a week or two after coming back. And they call it NAMthrax. And that's what they named it.
What's funny is that I'd gone there a few years, and there was 1 year that I got really sick, and I didn't know. And people would tell me that, NAMM is that's the place.
Well, here's the thing. You get a large gathering like that.
Right.
That it's not just, United States. This is all the countries, especially a lot of the Asian countries, because they make all our instruments and all our tech gear and all our audio equipment. And every musician and every tech geek needs to go to NAMM to see what's hot and what's coming out. But everybody's gathered in this convention center. It could have been the flu. It could have been this. It could have been a cold. You got that many people commiserating.
And that's what happened to me a couple of years ago. I got a really bad cold, which, like you said, I mean, it's rife for that kind of thing. You got all these people inside a closed place. Whatever.
Bound to get something.
Yeah. So when people were telling me that they got, it's NAMM thing. It happens. At and we mentioned NAMM. This is pretty much at any large convention. Where you're going to have a bunch of people come. Yeah, you're going to come down
200,000 people from all over the world.
Right. So nobody thought much of it. And I remember at the time saying that, hey, did you know that was possibly in the room? And we had no idea. The COVID was actually in the room. Had to be floating around. Oh, yeah. There were a couple gigs that I played, and just thinking back to that, hey, in this casino, because, COVID was starting to take off. And that I put it that way. Do you know that was possibly in the room where we were up there playing or whatever, or in the audience where everybody's sitting together, It's just
so it was tough when you started the show right before that, and then you wanted to get live people to come in and interview for your podcast, and then people don't want to be in front of each other even now. It's like
because we were talking about just like this. We were talking about having it in studio. But then, of course, COVID shut everything down. And
so you're on hiatus a little bit with the podcast. When are you going to start it back up?
Hopefully within the next month or so.
So we'll find out by going to EddieFluellen.com.
EddieFluellen.com.
Bada bing, bada boom.
That's me.
And you're going to find out about his upcoming shows with his 50 bands. The website's big because the tabs across have all the bands he's in. So your browser's going to probably crashed.
It's got the calendar there.
No, but he's got his calendar of all the events, whether it's Switch, 40 Years and Counting, the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So
Stone City.
do you have an idea who you're bringing on for the first podcast back?
Let's see. Oh man, the names escape me now. But yeah, we're looking to bring quite a few people on.
So you guys need to check that out. Now, I got a little inspiration when I started watching it, and I started doing this little video thing. It was mostly to build this video room for some of my clients, because I do a lot of audio recording and production stuff. And with the pandemic, some people asked for some virtual stuff because they couldn't come and do the live shows that I did all these production numbers for. So I did the video studio. So I'm trying it out and getting my niche. Okay, I know a lot of Las Vegas entertainers and people that I worked with back in the days, and it's kind of interesting just to get my feet wet in doing this type of production. But it's actually helping with some of my client base, because they want to do some recording, voiceover, talking head stuff, and then come do a video recording. So it's hand in hand. That production is starting to tie in more now, especially with people learning that you can do stuff from home. You don't need $10,000 TV studio or whatever. Or people don't have tech savvy, but they want to do a presentation or consulting or a webinar or a podcast. So I'm going to maybe rent out the room for people to do that.
Incredible.
So if you ever
room.
want to do anything,
Awesome room.
Come here and do it.
Oh wow! You heard it here first. So I got an
$600 an hour.
Oh, that part. Okay.
No. So we're going to talk about something we already said. As accomplished as you are, and like me just bugging out over that one track on that album, their arrangement, the composition, and the writing skills that you have, young people need to listen to this. And even more so, older people need to listen to what I'm about to say, because you, after all the stuff you've done, the profession that you're in, the accomplishment that you had, your age, everything that you've done, you've decided you're going back to college for a music degree. That just goes to show you guys, young people, okay? But even us older folks who think that, been there, done that. I got my education. I did my profession. I don't need to educate myself anymore. Or what's the purpose? Is it for financial gain? Is it just something that you want to say that you have? It's a mental thing. You are going right now to CSN?
Yes.
And going to get your music degree.
Yes.
I think that's dope. And I need you to talk a little bit about it. Why, my perspective of it is why you wanted to do it, but I'm sure it's something self-fulfilling that you want to do.
It is. It's since high school, that was one of the things I've always wanted to do. I always wanted to go back to school. And life kind of got in the way. And so now, and it seems like when you make that decision, things kind of line up to where it kind of pushes you along. Okay, this is what you want to do. Like, I've met people that were like extremely helpful as far as like getting me there. But again, it's like one of those, it's always been a dream of mine to go and get my degree. So this is pretty much a self-fulfillment kind of a thing.
Now, how long does that take to get that?
For me, it'll be 2 to 4 years. My associate's degree in 2 years, and then regular degree in 4. So
you hear it all the time. People say, I'm going back. I didn't finish because, of course, high school, you graduate. College goes on, but then the band thing happens. The switch thing happens. So you don't finish college. And
that's kind of, that's what happened in the beginning. You know, I was actually, life happened. Was in school. I did drop out before, but I had intended on going back, in college. But then again, Switch called, and so, sorry.
I think that's awesome. I think
leave Akron and go to California. So go there. But I'm excited. I'm really excited. It's fun. It's given me a whole new perspective on the whole music thing. I look at things differently than what I looked at them before. As far as writing and I just think differently now as far as that.
So the school is going to take up quite a bit of time. We're going to have a party. When you get your degree, we're going to have a party to celebrate. But you're still teaching.
Yes.
Piano, private lessons, and trombone lessons.
Yes.
You're working with kids.
Yes.
You got students. You got a roster of students.
Yep.
I think it's awesome that you're involved in that.
Oh, my boy, Cameron. I don't think he knew it was going to be. Thank you.
I think that's
awesome.
dope.
Cameron's one of my students.
Very good.
Doing very well too.
So we're going to do this one file. We touched on it a little bit. And as I was doing some research, I thought I knew a lot about you, and I know a lot about Switch and this and that. And I go to your website to just catch up with what you're doing now and this and that. But when I say, and I always say, hardest working man in showbiz, this guy has got to be doing something. You know, some people will do a band for 6 months, a year. I need to take a break 2 or 3 months, and then I'll do another project. He's always got to be doing something. Trust me. He's one of those nervous energy, entertainment, got to be doing something creative. He's got the skills.
Thank you.
He wants to do it. The bands, the writing. He's still writing for people. He's still music directing for people, arrangements, composition for people.
Thank you.
Knee deep, waist deep, neck deep in music production. But something says, hey, you can't entertain right now, which is the pandemic.
Yes.
And so I went to your website, and one of your blogs was, I am angry, in giant letters, quotations. And this is the type of person that you don't want to be held down, but we were all entertainment people, forced to not do what we love. And how you cope with it, and maybe you didn't cope with it. And I read some of it, but I want you to reiterate kind of what you said about somebody like you who has to be doing something, wants to be doing something. You're an entertainer by heart, and you can't do that for going over a year now. So what's your feelings on that?
And even with that, I try not to internalize it. I try not to take it too personally, because I mean, I'm not the only one. As I always say, I'm not the only one that went through this. I mean, the whole world went through this. Everybody did.
But none of us work as hard as you or want to work as hard as you. So I know it hit you hard.
With me, at the beginning of this, and of course we're Zooming, I'm talking to everybody on the phone, all that, and I had like quite a few people, well, we have to look at the positive side of this. You know, let's look, you know, and I'm sorry, I was like one of those guys that there's nothing positive about me telling me that I can't go do what I do. I can't go home and visit my family. I can't, you know, everybody knows that I'm a hugger. You know, I hug people. Everybody knows that. And when you tell me that I can't do that anymore, that hurt. That really hurt. And so when, you know, I was being told more than once, you know, hey, we have to be positive. We have to look up. And I remember starting out that way, you know, okay, we're going to be out of this in a couple of months, so I'm just going to practice my behind off. I'm just going to be at the piano, and that's all I'm going to do. Exercises, scales, I'm just going to be crazy. A couple of months turned into 3, 4, 5, and the more time went on, the angrier I got, you know. And it just got to the point where I just got to where, you know, I'm sorry. I'm trying to find the positivity in this. When I'm turning on the TV and I'm finding people dying from this, friends of mine are dying from this. Everybody knows the great Bruce Williamson. You know, that hurt. And that made me mad, you know. So I went on and I blogged. It's okay. And the intent of that was to let people know, hey, if you're mad at this, it's okay. It's okay to be
And you're
upset
probably better off expressing it than holding it in and saying, let me just deal with this in my own way.
And I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be rah, rah, rah about it and all that. When you see people dying like that, I mean, people that I don't even know, you know, but when you see the numbers, like just people just falling left and right, and you just wonder, okay, if I take a step this way, if I take a step that way, could that be the end of me? You know, and of course you're at home in your 4 walls, and all this stuff is coming. You know, you're thinking about it all, and am I ever going to be able to play? And the more time goes on, the more you're thinking, am I ever going to be able to play again? Am I going to be able to go? Am I going to be able to leave this house?
And it's a wake up call to. We talked about this on about 4 or 5 of these episodes, where as entertainers or, you know, people who are self-employed, we pivot. And we adjust, and maybe we have to look at it. This ain't the first and the last time this is going to happen.
Exactly.
And it seems like these things are getting more extreme. But you have to rethink things. You know, we don't. You know,
and that's what happened.
There was a point a few months ago when all my big corporate stuff started creeping back. After all that dead spot, I thought it was going to go from cold to warm to hot as far as gigs. All of a sudden it was cold, and all of a sudden it skipped warm, and I was getting all these last minute calls. People were starting to rebook these events that they canceled.
When things started opening back up again.
About 6 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago. Stuff started getting good again, and then this little uptick happened, and all those things now, things are chilling out again.
And it's funny
that I think booked, canceled.
I'm sorry, not to cut you off. I think that's what happened with a lot of us, especially in the entertainment business. When they declared, okay, we're going to open things back up again, it was the same thing with me. My phone just started ringing like that, you know.
And then it slowed down again.
Then it slowed down. It slowed down again. I got to say, when we were talking about the playground kind of in a sense kind of saved me, in the sense that it took my mind off of me, you know. Now we're going to put it on, like those people, as I say, the people that are up and coming in the business, it's about them. You know, or the guests that are on, it's about them. So, and that was good for me. So.
And another thing that was dope, and I'm going to play a piece of this for you guys real quick. We didn't hear no music, and we can't play all the hits because of copyright stuff with Facebook. This is something that you guys did during the pandemic. You got the fellas together, the Switch fellas together. Couldn't do anything live, so you did this little, everybody recorded their own part. And this is a remake of one of your previous hits from the previous albums.
Yep, everybody in their own homes. We tracked our individual parts and brought it together because the question was starting to come up. You know, is Switch still around? What's up with Switch? Is Switch going to come back out? So Greg and the fellows, we had this idea that, okay, let's put like this little video out. And at the time, it seemed like a lot of bands were like thinking that way. Let's put something out to let people
I did
know
the same thing.
We're still alive and well.
Because me and Keith and Paul Taylor, we talked about Keith Nelson, greatest bass player in the world, and Paul Taylor, great friend and sax player. We were doing a lot of corporate gigs. We were getting booked to do this little trio where we played funky, jazzy stuff. And then I said, man, I'm itching to do something. So I had him come over, and we did a 1 hour live bass sax. I don't know if I sent you that link. You would have loved it. You would have loved it. I'm going to let you watch a piece of it.
Please.
But all funky, jazzy stuff with them playing live their parts. And we did it live on Facebook and YouTube, and it was fun. And we all had nervous energy, so they loved it. I didn't have to ask them twice. They came over and they wanted to do it.
Awesome.
Same thing with you. You got the guys together. So before we're going to finish this podcast. We're over an hour right now. This DJ Rob, it goes by fast.
This is
when you're
fun.
having fun, right?
This is fun.
Good. I'm glad.
Thank you.
Eddie is a behind-the-scenes guy. He's not a talker. He's got a podcast where he's the host, and he says, I hate talking. I like to throw it to the guests, and it's their show, which is a way of doing things. It's cool. But I had to get stuff out of him today. He said, I don't want to talk about nothing. No, he didn't say that. I appreciate you. So we're going to wrap it up in about 5 minutes, but you got to hear a little music. So this is something they put together. They all recorded their parts at home. So enjoy about a minute or two of this, and then we'll come back and we'll finalize our little Taking It Back episode.
Thank you.
That's the part.
Many days have gone by. I say to myself, gotta let her know she's mine. Ooh, ain't gonna waste no more time wishing you were mine. If it's what I'm gonna do, I might not walk right up to you. Said I love you, baby. I love you. You should know, girl. You should know, girl. My love is so for real. My love is so for real. To have you near. I wanna be closer, girl. I've got to be closer.
If that don't make you want to go on iTunes and buy all the Switch albums, go buy them, go to his website, see when they're performing live, because, man, they're still doing it, and they're doing it well.
Thank you.
That was a fun project, wasn't it?
It was fun. And it's fun to be back out with the guys again. We're having a great time.
That was dope. Yeah. So once again, thank you. Anything else you want to discuss? Did you enjoy it? Was it as painful as you thought it was going to be?
No, not at all.
I promise you I get you a glass of wine when we're done. He's nervous.
Woo. Thank you very much. It was fun. It's a lot of fun.
All right, and shout out to all the people. Man, I was so engaged with you in this conversation. This was the first time where I didn't have a ton of research. Some of the guests I've known 30, 40 years, like I haven't known you that long. I've known of you, but and I said, we're going to discuss more and let you talk more, which was dope. But we had some people who were loving it, comments and questions and such, and I didn't get to a lot of it, but hey, it's all good.
Nice. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
But here, this is one of our little outings. We kicked it, some of our mutual friends. Got Randall R2 Bostic, Billy Nunn, my man Linwood Bell.
Oh yeah.
You know Linwood Bell. Did you guys ever hook up?
No,
When I
we did
introduced you
not.
that
Yeah,
day?
you did. You did.
That boy's bad.
I know.
Arrangement,
Yep.
compositions,
Yep.
writing,
Now-
keyboard.
Now that I'm back in
Did you
school
go
in
to his
Linwood, I'm
studio
going to be
after
calling you.
met? Did you ever go to his studio? You need to link up with Linwood Bell.
Yeah,
And there's
Linwood.
Eddie
Yeah, Linwood Bell.
hiding
I'm
back
calling
on my
you,
man
Linwood. Here I
Grant
come.
Peacock, great keyboard player.
Yep.
Paul Taylor.
That's the guy that performed that night.
I
Yeah.
made you guys come out to that function.
Yes.
As a powwow because
Yes.
we never, you know.
And
get together. That
the
a
food
couple
was
years
good
ago.
too.
But once again, we are with Eddie Fluellen, formerly and still of Switch.
Yes.
Thank you for coming out. Thank you guys for watching. We are going to sign off.
Thank you all.
Like I say, sorry about last week. I didn't have nothing for you. That was because it was the anniversary week, and sometimes you don't work. Hey, speaking of anniversary and wives, Carla is in the chat. Let's see what she said. Awesome. You're so humble, Eddie.
Oh, that was.
He charged me
Thank you.
$500 for this interview. What are you talking about? No.
Thank you.
So once again, you guys, thanks for coming out. DJ R.O.B. presents Taking It Back. We took it back. Wait a minute. We took it back like an 8-track with a Cadillac in the seats back. And you know what? He has the 8-track
Yes.
of Switch. And he knows I say this slogan. And he said, man, I forgot to bring the 8-track. If you would have bought the 8-track, I would have held it up right here and said, we go back like an 8-track. That was dope.
Look
Once
for it
again,
on
thanks, you guys.
Facebook. I'm going to post it on Facebook. I'll post
Take
it.
a picture of it.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Once again, thanks. I'm DJ R.O.B. On behalf of Eddie Fluellen, we thank you for watching. Thank you, sir. Once
Thank
again,
you.
we'll see you on the next one. Peace.